Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the session. Am I audible to you? आप लोग को मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just wanted to quickly check, Avinash, and there's one more participant, NUSLM, जिन्होंने अपना नाम mention किया है. Would you like me to continue in English? कि आप हिंदी में चाहोगे कि let's talk in Hindi?
दोनों में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, हिंदी इंग्लिश.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let me give you my introduction before we begin. I started working on VMware technology in 2010, and since then I have been working on VMware products. It's not that I used to earlier work on VMware and now I work on a different product. Till today, I also work on VMware products. So I've seen a huge transition, what it was in 2010 and what we have today in 2021. I started off with an ESXi version way back that was 3.5, very old version that I used to work on. And today I work on 7.0. I've worked on many different VMware products, AWS, Oracle, Google, and migration products, and done many certifications as well. As time goes by, we all do certifications. So, okay, let me begin talking about the technology. And I'll tell you more about it, on how we can leverage it, what are the options, for VMware. Okay. Again, if you have any doubts, any queries, feel free to pitch in. Okay. All right. So if I talk about a year, let's say if I talk about year 2002. Okay, we are in 2021, but let's say we are talking about a year 2002. Now, during this time, we did not have virtualization into production. I would say that yes, VMware had launched its product in the market, but it wasn't like every company started trusting it and every company started deploying the product in production. That was not happening in 2002. So what used to happen in 2002 was, if you have a company, let's say my company's name is ABC. Okay. Now, in every organization, what would happen is that you would have many applications. For example, you would have SQL, you would have IIS, you would have Apache, and you would have many more applications in every organization. And what would happen is, as there was no virtualization, you had to buy a physical machine for all these applications. Now, in a decent environment, what you would see generally is that you have different environments, as in you have production, then you would have development environment, you would have a QA environment, and you would have different types of environments available. Now, the concern was that at this time, around 2002, as we did not have virtualization, so for SQL, you might buy a server over here. Okay, you might buy an HP server for production. Then you need to buy an HP server for the same application in development, and you might need to buy same server for QA. Now, this is for one application. For example, if you have IIS or if you have Apache, the same pattern would follow. You would have to buy a server over here, 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 and for all the applications, you would have to buy one server. Now, when you're doing a testing, for example, if you over here have 16 GB of RAM, then in development, if you have 8 GB, or in QA, if you have 12 GB of RAM on the server, then this would not be a valid test, because a test is considered valid when you have same box across each environment. For example, if you have the same box with same configuration, like 16 GB of RAM, and same amount of CPU, you need to have across all environments exactly the same, then the test is considered absolutely perfect for you. Because when you have to make any changes, you do not make it directly on prod. You would proceed with dev, then go to QA, and then finally come to prod, and you would keep it on the same hardware. What I'm trying to say over here is, in 2002, buying a server was very expensive because you had to buy a physical machine. Now, when you have to buy a physical machine, the first problem that you run into is capex, that is capital expenditure. You have to buy a server, which is like, you would have to pay a lot. It's not that, a server that you would get it, for a few bucks here and there. You would have to pay a good amount of money, and that amount of money, is something that the company would have to pay. The second is OpEx. That is, the more number of servers that you have, the more number of people that you need to hire to manage them. Because if you have, for example, 1,000 physical boxes in your data center, you cannot expect, maybe one or maybe, two, three, four guys to manage them. You would need a good number of people to manage it, because every day you would have some hard drive failing, some issues, on those 1,000 physical boxes would keep coming up. So you need people, to look into it. Then your data center cost will go up. That is, if I talk about a data center is a facility, where you would keep your server. Okay, so this is like a physical location where you get your rack, and in rack you have to stack your devices. Okay, now why I say the data center charges will go up, because you will need more number of racks. The more number of physical hardware, the physical boxes you buy, the more racks you need, and with every rack, you are paying more to the data center. So this cost is going to go up. Then you would have another concern, which is life cycle management. Now this means that after every 5 years, like when you buy a server, for example, oops. Now what I'm trying to say is, when you buy a server, let's say in 2016, okay, you bought an HP server, and at that point of time you installed a 2012 Windows 2012 operating system on it. Okay, now fast forward, we are in 2021. Now today, if you try installing Windows operating system 2022, yeah, go ahead please, someone had a question. Okay, if you have any query, please feel free. Hi, MK. MK Singh, thank you for joining the call. I think Fabian is not there on the audio till now. Mr. Singh, if you have any queries, feel free to pitch in.
Yeah, thank you. No problem. Yeah, I will check. Yeah,
Thank you.
just I joined. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time out. Okay, so now if you fast forward to 2021, and on that same server, if you try installing Windows Server 2022, which is in preview, which is in beta version, you would not get support from HP. This is because this server, which you bought in 2016, might not support the server 2022, because every server is only valid for 5 years. Like when you buy a hardware, the vendor would say that this is only valid for 5 years, and after 5 years, the server is end of life. Now, when the server is end of life, after that, you have to throw away the server, because that's an old machine. You cannot use it. You have to throw that away. Now, to dispose the server, when I say to dispose the server, you have to pay to the vendor. I mean, the first thing is you have to find a vendor who can take back the old machines. Okay, and it's not that you will get some money back because you're giving some hardware. It will not be that you will get some money back. You will have to pay money. You will have to pay to dispose your old hardware properly. This is the way it will be. Now what would happen is, if you have 1,000 or maybe 2,000 or maybe 3,000 physical boxes in your environment, every year, let's say 5 or 10 machines will, at an average, will be above 5 years. So lifecycle management will become like a routine activity for you every year, wherein you are disposing of 5 or 6 servers on a yearly basis. Now this is again a headache that you have to throw away the servers, make sure that there is a proper vendor. You have to audit them, so that in auditing you can also show them that you dispose the server properly, and then you have to buy the new ones, rack and stack them. So this is again, one of the concerns, that you would run into, that is life cycle management. Okay. Now, these are the few concerns, that you would run into when you are running a physical environment. Now, this is with every company. It's not that, only one company would run into the issue. If I talk about pre-virtualization year, when you did not have virtualization and when you were running everything on hardware, these were the concerns that you are bound to run into. These are some things that you will run into. Now, what is the solution to this problem? Okay, the solution is the word hypervisor. Like today, we hear about cloud. Now, if I talk about cloud, what is cloud? Cloud is a term. Okay, no company can say that I own the cloud. HP cannot say that I own the cloud. Neither Microsoft can say I own the cloud. Cloud is basically a term, and everyone gives you a cloud service, be it a vendor out there, like, a services company like HCL, TCS out there, or be it a manufacturing player like HP or AWS. Everyone is offering like cloud services. The same way back then, the problem, that we listed over here right now, the solution was hypervisor, the term hypervisor. Now, what is hypervisor? If I define hypervisor, the definition says an operating system or an application. It can be an operating system, it can be an application, which can run multiple operating systems on a box. That means, for example, you have a physical machine, you deploy any operating system and application, and now you can run Windows 7 over here, you can run CentOS, you can run Fedora, you can run Red Hat, you can run Windows 2012, Windows 10, Windows 8, XP, right? So an operating system or an application which gives you the capability of running multiple operating systems on one physical box, right? That is what my hypervisor is. That is the official definition of a hypervisor. Now, if I talk about hypervisors, there are many hypervisors, out there. However, we classify hypervisors into two categories. If I talk about hypervisors, they come into two categories. The first one is type 1 and the other one is type 2. When I say type 1, think about it as an operating system, right? If I give you a laptop and if I give you a USB drive with Windows 10 operating system on it, and if I ask you to install it, what you would do is you would plug the USB in the laptop and you will go ahead with an installation of Windows 10. To install Windows 10, you do not need any floppy drive, you do not need any external file that you have to boot the laptop with, or you do not have to worry about getting any file to install Windows 10. This is because Windows 10 is a complete operating system itself. It has all the capabilities, it has all the files, threads, procedures, kernels, it has everything in it. It does not need an external support for the installation because it is a complete operating system. Type 1 hypervisor are the same. Type 1 hypervisors get installed directly on bare metal. When I say bare metal, that is, if you call up HP and you tell them that you want a server, okay, and tell them that you do not want any operating system on it, it has to be absolutely raw blank, the hard drive has to be raw blank, okay, they'll give you a raw server with nothing on it. Now what you do is you install type 1 hypervisor directly on the physical box. So it is a complete operating system just like Windows 10, and you install it directly on the bare metal. Now VMware offers the type 1 hypervisor, which is called ESXi. This is the name of their type 1 hypervisor. Now, what is the full form of ESXi? It is Elastic Sky X. Elastic Sky X. And I is for integrated. Okay. So earlier they used to call it as ESX. Then they named it to ESXi. Now, why they did so? I'll quickly tell you about it. But the full form is Elastic Sky X. This is what it means. So their type 1 hypervisor, VMware's type 1 hypervisor is called ESXi. Now, what we do, as I said earlier, is you install ESXi directly on the bare metal. You do not need any other software. You do not need any other file, to install ESXi. It gets installed just like Windows 10 on a laptop, directly on the hard drive. Now, if I talk about type 2, think about type 2 as an application. Okay, think about it as an application. So for example, this is my Windows machine. Okay, and I say that I want to watch a movie on this Windows 10 machine. So I would need a software. I would need either Windows Media Player, VLC, or there are so many applications out there. So if I want to watch a movie on VLC, then I would have to download the VLC setup. So the VLC software I would get as an EXE file. So what I have to do is I have to run this EXE file. I have to install the application VLC, and then I can start, watching the movie on it. Same goes with the type 2 hypervisor. Now, a type 2 hypervisor is a EXE file. Okay, it is an EXE file that you get. It is not a complete operating system. Okay, it is not an operating system. It needs an operating system. So what you would do is you would get an EXE file and you have to install it. Okay, now let me quickly show you on how it looks like. So if you go to add and remove programs, what you would see is this. You would see VMware Workstation. So VMware Workstation is a type 2 hypervisor. You need to install it just like all the other applications like Firefox, Mozilla, so many applications are out there. Just like that, you would have to install this application as well. Okay, because this is a type 2 hypervisor. Okay, so you would install it. You need an operating system. It is needed. Operating system is needed. And then what you do is you install the EXE file, and then you go ahead and create VMs on it. Okay, this is what we do. So now let me quickly show you the architecture on how it looks like. So if I talk about type 1, this is my physical machine. Okay, think about it. This is my physical machine. It can be HP, Dell, Fujitsu, IBM, Lenovo, any server it can be. Okay, and it would have CPU, memory, network, and disk. What you would do is then you would go ahead and install type 1 hypervisor. What is type 1 hypervisor? It is a complete operating system, and it is ESXi. I would install ESXi directly on the physical machine. And then what I would do is I would create virtual machines on it. And then I would create, virtual machines on it. If I talk about type 2, the architecture looks like you have a physical machine. It would have CPU, memory, network, and disk. What you would do is you would go ahead and install a Windows operating system or a Linux operating system. Okay, for example, I installed Windows 2012, okay, or maybe a Windows 10. Then what you would do is you would go ahead and then install type 2 hypervisor, which is VMware Workstation. Okay, we would install that, and then we would go ahead and start creating virtual machines on it. This is a type 2 architecture. Now, type 2 is something which is suggested for testing, learning, practicing, R&D. Okay, any non-production stuff that you do, type 2 hypervisor is a good option. However, when you are running production, when you are running critical applications, and when you're running your web servers, that all has to run on a type 1 hypervisor. Okay, type 2 hypervisor is all about testing, seeing how the application behaves, how it looks like, what are the features, and when you have to actually run it, then you run it on a type 1 hypervisor. Anyone has any query on what a type 1 or a type 2 hypervisor is, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to repeat. Avinash, is it okay for you? Narcis?
Yes, it's okay for me.
Yeah, it's fine.
The explanation is clear.
Cool. Yes, it is. Great. If you have any queries, please feel free to interrupt. Thank you, Girish, for joining. Thank you, Fabio, for joining. Pritish, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for taking the time out. Okay, now we understand, what the world was like before virtualization. We understand the solution was hypervisor. We understand what a type 1 and a type 2 hypervisor is. We understand what their architecture looks like. Now let me talk about how virtualization is growing. Okay, how VMware as a company, it's growing, itself. What are they doing? Let me quickly talk about that. So if I talk about VMware, when they started off, their main bread and butter for the company was ESXi. ESX, I should say, they called it as ESX back then. Now, what was ESX? Now, back then in 2002, they have to launch their hypervisor. They wanted to launch their hypervisor. Now, to launch any hypervisor, you need an operating system. So VMware, what they did was they reached out to Red Hat. They reached out to Red Hat and they took their operating system. Okay, and with Red Hat, they merged hypervisor capabilities, and it was called as ESX. So Red Hat plus hypervisor capabilities developed by VMware was actually called ESX. Now, the concern at that point of time was VMware was paying royalty to Red Hat, because every deployment that they used to do, they had to give money and to Red Hat. They were dependent on Red Hat for patches, for bugs. If there was any bug found in Red Hat at that point of time, they would have to patch the image again. The image was bulky. It used to take a lot of time. And it was a huge image. Think about it, in 2002, the image was around 1.5 gig. That was like a very huge image at that point of time. VMware was working with someone, and they were not completely independent. So what they did was they made in-house capabilities. So what they did was they downloaded Linux. Linux is a free operating system. You can download, I can download, anyone can download. So they downloaded Linux, the free version, and then they integrated hypervisor capabilities in it. Okay, and now they started calling it ESXi. So what they had done was they got rid of Red Hat. There was no more Red Hat. They were not dependent on Red Hat. They were not paying any royalty. They were not paying any money to Red Hat. Now they made their in-house Linux plus hypervisor capabilities. And what they did was they went ahead and hired developers, and they made sure that everything was done locally. They were not exporting anything out. They were not dependent on any vendor out there. Okay, this made the software light. They have the control over the patching. They can patch as they feel like. Okay, and the booting time was very quick. Until today, if I talk about till today, till that is, if I download an ESXi ISO, this is only 350 MB. That is the only space, that's the complete ISO, of the ESXi. That it is that small. If you download a Windows 1, you would see like 6.5, 7 GB or maybe more. But ESXi as an operating system is only 350 MB till today. Okay. Now this was a basic difference between what was ESX and what is ESXi. Okay. Now, if I talk about the company, the last point that I was talking about, how VMware grew itself. So earlier, VMware was basically focusing on compute. Their bread and butter was only compute. Compute was looking after CPU and memory, virtualization, and that was done by ESX. And later it was done by ESXi. Okay. Then what they did was they started expanding their portfolio. And that is, they moved to networking. And they bought a company called Nicira. And sorry. So what they did was in 2013, they bought a company called Nicira, and they went into network virtualization. Now, what we have been talking about is compute virtualization, which is also called data center virtualization. Okay. And then they went ahead and bought a company for network virtualization, and they launched a product called NSX. NSX is basically about network virtualization. What is network virtualization? You have a physical router. And a physical router gives you the capability of load balancing, DHCP, IPsec VPN, NATing. It would give you the capability. You would need a firewall. You would need IDS, IPS. You would need switching capabilities, BGP, routing capabilities, all those capabilities that a router gives you, like a VRF or a private, VLAN. There are many more, that are offered by a physical router. All these capabilities are now given by NSX. This is a complete software. There is no hardware over here. This is a complete software, and this software can give you all the networking capabilities that a physical router would give you. Now that's the second portfolio they moved into. Then they thought about storage. They said, we have something in compute, we have something in network. What about storage? We have nothing in storage. So what they did was they went ahead and created a product called a vSAN. This is for their storage part. Now, what vSAN would do is, if you have many physical boxes, and on every physical box, you have local hard drive, you have many local hard drives, what vSAN as an application will do for you, it will combine all these hardwares, all these hard drives together, and it will create one shared data store, like one shared common pool of storage you would see. And this basically storage is from all the local hard drives, which are available on the physical box. This is what vSAN would do for you. So they have compute, they have network, they have storage. Now these three capabilities combined together is called SDDC. This is called software defined data center. Now, when VMware says that you should be running software defined data center, basically they're trying to sell their software. They're saying that, you should get our compute, you should get our network, and you should get our storage. Now, if you try running VMware on the cloud, that is on Google, they have partnered with services like VMware Cloud on AWS, VMware Cloud on Oracle, VMware Cloud on Google, and VMware Cloud on Azure. Now you can run VMware over there as well. So all these offerings basically give you SDDC. So they basically give you compute, they give you network, they give you storage. This is what it gives you. Okay. Now let me quickly show you. Let me quickly talk about a couple of more, scenarios, terminologies, I would say, and then I would show you an installation. Okay, how an ESXi installation happens, and what does it mean, what the options mean. Okay, so when I say in VMware, there is a concept called overcommitment. Okay, and there is a concept called sharing. Let me quickly walk you through what they actually mean. So overcommitment means you have a physical machine. Think about it. You have a physical machine, and here you have 100 GB of RAM. Okay, you have CPU, memory, network, and disk. And for example, let's say that you have 100 GB of RAM. Okay, what you do is on this physical machine, you go ahead and install ESXi. Okay, you would install ESXi over here, and then you would create a virtual machine. Okay, so let's say I created 4 virtual machines. Okay, and to each virtual machine I gave 25 GB of RAM, 25 GB of RAM, 25 GB of RAM, 25 GB of RAM. Now the RAM over here that I have on the physical machine, this is called PRAM. This is physical RAM. Okay, and the RAM which I give to the virtual machines, it's called a VRAM. It's called virtual memory, virtual RAM. Okay, overcommitment means that you can create the 5th virtual machine, you can create a 6th virtual machine, and you can give them 25 GB of RAM as well. So what I've done is I have created virtual machines. Collectively, I have given 150 GB of virtual memory. I have only 100 GB of physical memory, but I've given 150 GB of virtual memory. How is this possible? This is possible because of overcommitment. Okay, how it works? It works is that, for example, this VM, if it's not using the complete memory, if it's not using complete memory, it is using only 10 GB, the other amount of memory can be shared with this one. If it's only using 12 GB, the remaining memory can be shared over here. Okay, so we are taking into consideration that not every virtual machine is using their complete 25 GB of RAM. Whatever RAM is given to them, they are not using it completely. Okay, and we can create more virtual machines. This is something VMware allows, overcommitment, and it happens in every environment. Trust me, it happens in every environment. Okay. Now, what would happen is that once you do overcommitment, you have to look at the physical RAM utilization, how much the RAM is getting utilized over here. Okay, so this is something which is kind of allowed. The next thing happens is called sharing. That is, if you have a physical machine, you install ESXi and then you create VMs over it. Okay, so for example, you give 25 GB of RAM over here, 25 GB of RAM and 25 GB of RAM. If one virtual machine is not using the complete RAM, it can be given to the other one. For example, this machine is using 7 GB, this is using 8 GB. So what ESXi would do is, as ESXi has the complete control over the memory, ESXi is giving memory to each and every virtual machine. So it can also share memory. For example, if it was taking 12 GB of RAM and now the utilization came down to 6 GB, the remaining 6 GB ESXi can give it to any other virtual machine as well. So overcommitment and sharing. Overcommitment means you can allocate more, you can provision more in your environment, and sharing means the resources can be shared. If you're not using, fine, I'm going to give it to someone else. That is what sharing means. Now, let me quickly show you an installation on how an ESXi installation would happen. Now, let me show you my lab setup. So what I've basically done is that I have a Windows machine. And on this Windows machine, what I'm doing is that I have, let me show you, I have 64 GB of RAM, okay? And I have an i7 processor. And here I have few SSDs, which I'm running. So what I'm going to do is over here, I have my VMware workstation. And over here, I will be deploying the virtual machines. So I am only using VMware Workstation just to create the lab. Okay, it's not that I'm going to teach you VMware Workstation. No, I would not be teaching you VMware Workstation. It's only to build the lab because I do not have physical boxes with me in a home environment to show you. So I'll be doing it on VMware Workstation. Okay, now to deploy or to create a ESXi, what you do is you simply go ahead and create a new virtual machine, and I choose the ISO over here for ESXi. It says ESXi detected, and I give it a RAM. For example, I'll say I'll give 32 GB of RAM. I'll increase the CPU. I'll create only a 10 GB of drive and finish and power on. Let me quickly show you on how the ESXi installation looks like. So whenever you boot from ISO, be it on VMware Workstation or be it on the physical machine, this is the way it will look like. Installing any operating system on VMware Workstation does not mean that you get a different feel or you get a different sense on how the installation would happen. This would do it the same way. Okay, so I would begin with the installation. What I am doing right now is the files, the ISO files from that ISO image are being copied over on the memory. So this is what it is doing, like loading ESXi installer. This is basically copying the booting files and keeping them on the memory. And now the console would change over here and it would start loading up the files. Now this shows me that I am going to install VMware ESXi 7. That's the latest version available. There's something called as a build number. I'll tell you later, what a build number is. Here, I am running it on a VMware workstation. That is why it says VMware Inc. Else you would see HP, Dell, if you have your physical machine, that's what it's going to show you. Which CPU are you running? How much RAM that you have given to the ESXi? With that information, you would see it over here. Let me change the setting of networking so that it picks up an IP from DHCP. This is my domain controller server. So this will actually leave out an IP. Let me quickly check one setting. Now these are private VLANs. I'll talk to you, more about it in future, discussions on what this is and why do we need this. but this is only just to, bring it to the same environment so that, it picks up an IP. Now, let me quickly talk about the installation, how the installation would happen. This first screen is very important to understand that what it means and how the installation would happen. It says, welcome to the ESXi 7.0 installation. VMware ESXi 7 installs on most systems, but only on but only systems on VMware compatibility guide are supported. What does this mean? Is that if you try installing ESXi on a laptop, it would work. If you try installing it on any physical machine like I'm trying to do it, it would work for you. However, tomorrow if you run into an issue and when you call up VMware and you tell them that you need support, that is when you reach out to technical support engineer and you tell them that you need support on ESXi, they would ask you for a bundle. They would ask you few files. And if they come to know that the hardware, the physical box on which you're running ESXi is not supported, they will deny you support. They will not give you support. Now, how do I verify that is my machine supported or not? So what you do is you quickly go to Google and you type over here, VMware compatibility guide. Okay. You go to VMware compatibility guide. And here you would see systems and servers. This is a drop down with many options available. Okay, but only we are targeting systems and servers. Now, for example, your vendor is HP, okay, and you have a 380. For example, you have a model 380. Okay, now when you do a 380, it will tell you, and you are looking for ESXi 7. Okay, now you put these filters over here and you do an update. So this would show you that all these servers of HP, they support ESXi 7. This is what it is showing you. Okay, so you need to make sure that in your environment, when you are installing ESXi on any physical machine, that physical machine should be listed over here. If the machine is not listed over here, that means the hardware is not supported. Okay, so VMware very clearly states on the first prompt that the hardware on which you're installing ESXi is listed over here and it is compatible and supported. Because tomorrow, if you reach out to VMware technical support stating that you need help, if the hardware is not listed over here, VMware will deny the support. They will not give you support. Okay, so this is something very important to keep in mind, that the first screen, on the very first screen, it is taking confirmation from you that you agree, you accept, and you confirm that the hardware on which you're installing ESXi is supported. I hit the enter key, I continue. Okay, now the other thing is that the next screen is basically about license agreement. Now, if you agree, if you don't agree, there is no ifs and buts over here. You have to agree to the license agreement. I mean, there is no workaround for this. So you hit F11. It's not that you're hitting enter and you're continuing. You have to hit F11 so that you agree. Now, what it would do is it would look for the hard drive. It would look for the basic installation media. Where do you want to install the operating system? Like every operating system needs a hard drive, somewhere to install it. So we have a 10 GB of local hard drive. That is what it recognized, and I would choose it. I would highlight it. It is there highlighted in yellow. So I would just choose that and hit enter to continue. It is asking for a keyboard layout. How do you want your keyboard layout to be? Mine is US default. If you would like to change it as per your country, feel free. Now you have to give a password. Why it says a root password? Because ESXi is Linux-based kernel. ESXi is running on Linux kernel. That is why it is prompting you for a root password. So you have to specify a password over here. Let me specify a simpler one. That is welcome at 123 W caps. So that's what I mentioned. Now, if my passwords are not matching, it will clearly say passwords do not match. And when it says password do not match, you keep hitting enter, nothing would happen. When the passwords will match, then only it will let you to go on to the next screen. Okay, now you hit enter and you continue. And here it is asking for a confirmation. It is saying that ESXi 7 will be installed on the local hard drive. The disk will be repartitioned. Whatever data you have, it will go away. nothing will be left on this hard drive. Everything will be wiped off. Do you want to agree? Do you want to proceed? Okay, so F11 is basically for install. So if you keep hitting enter, nothing would happen. You have to hit F11 for the installation to continue. You hit F11 and the installation would continue. It would only take a minute or two and the installation will be done. This is how you install ESXi. Be it you have an HP server, be it you have a Lenovo or any other brand server, IBM or a Dell server, whatever it is. This is the way you would have to go ahead and install your ESXi, and this is the way it would happen. There is no mouse needed over here, because everything what you're doing is hitting enter, hitting few keys like 5 or 6 times, and the installation would happen. And once the installation happens, it's going to reboot, and then it will pick up an IP from DHCP automatically. If not, then you would have to probably put in a manual IP address. That is something that we can also do. Again, if I show you the ISO file, as I talked about, of ESXi 7, it's only like 350 MB. That is all. That is how big your ESXi installer ISO is. It's a very small compact operating system that they have. Now this ESXi 7 installation is almost done. It says installation complete. Remove the installation media before rebooting. I say okay, and it's going to reboot it. Now you would see that the ISO drive, it's no more connected. It's unchecked over here. It's no more connected. And my ESXi booting happens. Now it is booting off from the hard drive. I am running SSD, so that gives an extra advantage to me, so that it boots up quickly. This is basically confirming the same, that you're running ESXi 7. This is your build number, and if I had a physical machine, it would say HP, Dell, Lenovo, whatever the server make model was. And here it talks about CPU and memory. Now this should theoretically pick up an IP address, because this domain controller of mine would give an IP. Let's see if it picks up an IP address or not. I think it should, but let's verify. Now to manage ESXi, all that you have to do is the IP that you get, put it on the browser, and you are good to go. This is all that you have to do. The IP address that you get. Nowadays, every installation is basically browser based, so that you're not dependent on any operating system, be it if you have a Linux machine or a Mac operating system or a Windows, any operating system under the sun that you have. All that you need is a browser, and you are good, good to manage your environment. Same is the case with the ESXi as well. Come on, any minute now, it should be done. Any doubts, any confusions, any questions so far? Avinash, Fabio, Nasis, any questions you have?
So actually, my organization is running its own cloud, private cloud, that is based on the VMware NSX and NSXT. I think. So
Right.
what is this? So currently they are running on NSX and now upgrading in NSXT.
Right. So what happened is, if I talk about NSX, so basically this slide where I talked about, in 2013, what they did was they acquired a company called Nicira. Okay, and this was doing network virtualization. So when they launched NSX, it was called NSX V. Okay, this was for vSphere. NSX V means NSX for vSphere. Now you have KVM, you have Hyper-V. So they are expanding their portfolio again. So what they are saying is, now you can run NSXT, that is transformer. I mean, there's a different names for it. So you can run NSXT now on vSphere, you can run it on KVM, you can run on Hyper-V. It is almost out there. Hyper-V, it should be launched soon. So what they're saying is now their network capabilities can be run on multiple hypervisors. So you would have NSX-V in your environment. NSX-V is getting out of date. It is end of life. And every customer, you like it or not, you have to move to NSX-T. That is why they are migrating it to NSX-T.
Right.
So this is basically about network virtualization, wherein your physical routers capability is all getting inbuilt into NSXT. Like if you need to set up an IPsec VPN,
Right.
you can do it from NSXT. All that can be done from here.
So you will cover this is also in this course.
No, that is a separate course altogether. NSXT is a dedicated separate course altogether, which would not be covered in this. So when we talk about NSXT, they would only be talking about NSXT and nothing else.
So me, basically, I'm looking for this NXXT only.
Okay, so for NSXT, before you enroll to this course, you need to know what ESXi and all the functionalities are. Because they would not talk about what a vCenter is, how it works, what is an HA, what is DRS. They expect over here that you should know all these functionalities over here. And even if you Google up, NSXT, let me quickly show you. If you Google up and say NSXT ICM, this is called Install, Configure, Manage. This is the course, the 5-day course that you would have. There, they have their prerequisites. They would have their prerequisites. So here they have clearly mentioned out that, you have a good understanding of TCP IP, enterprise switching, VMware data center virtualization fundamentals. Okay. You need to know what the basic fundamentals of a compute are, because they would not tell you what an HA is, what DRS is, how data stores work, what a virtual machine is, how do you create it, what are the options. They would not talk about it. They would not even talk about the basic networking. They would straight jump into the basic networking, because this is a 5-day course, and here they only focus on NSX. You see, it's a 5-day course. So I would say if you want to learn NSX, feel free, you should. However, just think about compute. Learn this first and then go to this batch, because you will get confused at one point of time that what are these basic things, what they're talking about. Because the trainer over here will expect that you come from an environment where you manage VMware and you know VMware. That is why you are adding network capabilities on it.
Right.
Now, this gets an IP address over here. Now, all that I have to do is go in the browser and just type 10.10.10.10, and what the IP was, 10.10.10.10.101. 101. And you hit the enter key. The browser will give you a warning because it is not sure about the certificate. So you say you continue, you accept the risk, that's fine, and you get this logo. Okay. You are logging into VMware ESXi. You log in with the root, because that's Linux. It is based off Linux background. And now you enter the password that you specified during installation. That is VMware, welcome at 123. This basically talks about, telling VMware on if there are any crashes and all that. And then you have your ESXi. This is your ESXi. It would show you how much CPU, how much memory you have, how many virtual machines, what kind of storage, what basic networking that you have, how this networking works, what a VM kernel adapter is, what does it mean. You can just manage. This is the way it is. Now, if you have many ESXi hosts, what you do is you have a component called vCenter. Via vCenter, you would be managing it. So you have a component called vCenter. This is a management console. And from here, you manage all your environment, your complete environment. And for NSXT, also what would happen is, Avinash, that this gets integrated with VDS. Now, what a VDS is, how it works, this is something that they would expect at least you know about it, because I have been into that training. I am a VCP NSX. I'm NSXT certified. This course I have done it, and I am certified. I've done this certification as well. That's why I'm telling you. That's why I know about it. They would expect you that you should know all these things, because they're not going to clarify VDS over there, because as it is, they have too much of things to talk about. That's the reason. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the demo. Zoya, that's it from my end.
So can you tell me, so what is the course, what the topics you will cover here in this course topic?
Sure. So all that you have to do is just go to Google, and on Google just type vSphere 7 ICM. Okay, you just type this,
Okay.
and then you will get the first link over here. Okay, this basically talks about what a vSphere is, how it helps you, vSphere install configure manager. Okay, this will tell you at the end of the course, you would know what an ESXi is, how to deploy vCenter. So whatever they talk about over here, by default, I will be covering all this. Okay, but there are few things. For example, VDS that I spoke about. They have not spoken about VDS over here. I will tell you what a VDS is. They have not, talked about host profile. I'll tell you what a host profile is. There are many more, things, like iSCSI port binding. They have not even mentioned about it. You get to learn all these things when you're doing a higher, an advanced course of VMware, right? Then they would talk about what a distributed switch is. Then they would talk about what a iSCSI port binding is. But I would be covering all these topics by default, and I would be going ahead and telling you much more about it. So it's not going to be my first batch whom I would be training. I have been training for many years now, and I've taught close to about 300 plus professionals, and I still have batches going on weekends. Today in the morning I have my batch, tomorrow morning I have my batch. So yeah, I have batches going on every weekend. So you're not the first ones whom I will be teaching. So be sure about it.
What's the duration of this course?
This is a 40 hours course.
40 hours.
It will take 40 hours, and we'd split it in weekends.
Okay.
Like 3 hours. I think 3 hours a day is more than enough.
Yeah.
Because then it gets
Yeah,
too much.
Right. 3 hours is
It's too much, and then you have to digest, and you have to do the labs, and you have to learn all that. So I think 3 hours a day, which means 6 hours of of a weekend, I think that's a good enough one to look into.
around 7 weeks.
Right, 6-7 weeks it should take approximately to get that going.
Okay, fine.
Anyone has any query, anything that you would like to ask?
Yes, Umesh, thanks for such a beautiful demo. Okay,
No
so
problem.
I hope guys you have got whatever we are telling. Okay, so as a part of NetMinion, let me tell you, Sumesh is a working professional, as he was saying. So that is the very biggest, you can say one of the asset for you guys, that he is a professional working professional guy. So not only he is teaching, but he is working also. So by that way, maybe you are not getting only the certificate kind of knowledge, but whatever production environment knowledge you should have, you will be getting that. Not only that, either you are talking about troubleshooting, you are getting, either you are talking about the interview perspective, you are getting. So mainly whosoever is joining us, okay, they people are having the these kind of focus in the mind. On the top of that, 40 hours of course, as he is saying, approximately you can say 1 hour, 1 and 6 months. Okay, so 1 hour and 30 days, or 15 days, bit like that. Okay, so you will be having 1 to 2 months, maybe you can just talk about 2 hours, 2 weeks, up or down, bit like that. Apart from that, you will be getting lab access. Okay, whosoever is joining the course, they will get lab access for sure. Secondly thing, lab is 24/7. You can access as per your timing. But if there is some requirements like this is very highly consuming, lab. So maybe if the timings we need to set as per your convenient, we can do that part also. Then next things are whatever we are teaching, whatever those things will be getting recorded. Okay, you will be have the recording of each and everything. That recording you can just check from the web portal. You can just check over the app, either you are using Apple or you are using Android, hardly matter. So you can just download the NetMinion solution app, and you can access those videos as and when you required, as per your time, as per your place. only the internet should be there. Okay, even in the app, you can download it as offline as well. So those are the benefits which you guys are getting. Now, if we will coming to the fee part, please feel free to contact Joya post this training. Okay, and the person who don't have provided the number so far, I would say you kindly provide your phone numbers or maybe your email IDs or WhatsApp number. I hope the WhatsApp number or the Telegram detail would be enough, okay, for us. So you just provide your detail to us. If you are interested, we can take this up further and you can be get enrolled. Now, from when this course would be starting, most probably from next weekend. But if there is some another change or there is some another information which we need to cascade, maybe you can talk with Joya. She will be the first point of contact for you guys, where she will be providing you all of such kind of details. So any other question? Apart from it, if you have some technical query, I would say Somesh is the right person who can provide you each and every detail about the technical. But apart from the technical, if you have any other query, please feel free to ask. By the way, Avinash, have you done ever some course from us?
रवि मैं F5 किया है ACI किया है
I was just wondering that you are the same Avinash or not. Okay, then you are aware how we teach.
Yes, I know.
Even Narcis also is our old student, so I think so Fabiano is the one who is the new. Okay, perfectly fine. So anybody else has any doubt, any question, anything you wanted to know?
Fine from me. I don't have any question. Everything is clear.
Thanks, Narcis. Not from you also, Vinas, right?
Yeah, it's fine. It's good.
Okay, what about you, Fabiano?
Yeah, it's all okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been very clear. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thanks. So maybe if you are interested, okay, Fabiano, so you can just provide us the phone number over the chat. Maybe Joya will, be in touch with you and she can take this forward. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Somesh, you wanted to continue with some other